About 4 days ago, Angola's main opposition party, the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, UNITA, filed a motion in Parliament to begin proceedings to remove President João Lourenço from office. Now, this was publicly announced in July, but the UNITA only stated this week that its reasons for this. They stated it in a 100-page document signed by all 90 of its MPs. This document is said to contain 200 petitions, more than 200 pieces of evidence, and 40 citizens as witnesses in support for UNITA. The parliament still maintains that it rejects the petition. However, the president, João Lourenço, has responded to this threat in a speech. We'll join our guests now to have this conversation, talk about the attempted impeachment and what the president had to say about it. Joining us now, we have Gonçalo, political analyst, Lisbon, Portugal. Thank you so much, Gonçalo, for joining us.
Thanks for the invite.
It's a pleasure. All right, let's start with the intention to impeach the president, João Lourenço. Why exactly will the UNITA party want the president impeached?
For three main reasons. First, to gain political power. Another is to negotiate future processes in the future. And the third one is looking at the economic, social, and democratic process in Angola, which hasn't consolidated at all. It's a good moment for them to do this.
Okay. Now, in his speech, the president highlighted areas in his administration that he has fulfilled his promises. Is that true? Because the opposition accuses the president of things like food shortage, unemployment, jailing demonstrators, and of course being authoritarian. So is it true that he has performed in his own capacity as president?
Well, when you look at the main aspects that were promised by UNITA after the elections in August, I don't think that most of them have taken place. First of all, the local elections, MPLA were supposed to initiate the process of local elections. That hasn't happened. There's no process taking place. And when we remember that UNITA won in Luanda, the capital city, with almost 80%, and in other key provinces, it's essential that Angola has local elections. When you look at the economic factors, there's a major crisis going on in Angola at the moment. There's lots of money also that is injected to the country. Recently, the United States signed a great deal with Angola. The World Bank is providing the country with great subsidies. And the truth is that the Angolan people are unsatisfied. The money continues not to be seen in anything truly relevant to them, be that education, be that agriculture subsidies. And so I would say no, that all main aspects that were promised by MPLA haven't taken place, and with a big exclamation point in the democratic consolidation that was promised.
Right. Now, speaking of the UNITA and the fact that they are strong contenders as well, would you say that they're taking this so personal, fighting this fight because they believe that the president is not performing well, or for their own personal agenda?
I think they're doing a bit of both. I think that the president is naturally not performing well. They're using the fact that there's lots of dissidents in the MPLA party. It's an extremely fragmented party at the moment. They're using that, and in my opinion, they're using that very smartly. And also, besides this weakness, this political weakness of the president, I think they're using it for their political agenda, obviously, because when you look at UNITA has 90 deputies in the Senate. That is not enough to impeach the president.
All right, Gonçalo, apologies for that. We'll go on a short break now. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Please hold that thought. Stay with us. Hi, Gonzalo. Could you please help us take out your earpiece? I think it's causing some noise or interference. I don't know. If you can
Yeah.
use the audio on your device.
Can you hear me well now?
Yes, yes, this is perfect. This is perfect. Thank you. Many thanks for staying with us on Village Square Africa. Now, we're still talking about the attempted impeachment of President João Lourenço in Angola and how the UNITA party still maintains that he needs to be impeached. Now, I still have my guest with me, Gonzalo. And Gonzalo, you were talking about the reason the UNITA party is hell-bent on getting the president impeached. I did ask whether it was a personal vendetta or because they feel like he's underperforming like every other person thinks. So you were saying something. Please go ahead.
But it's a bit of both. That it's obviously because he's underperforming, some of the reasons I've stated, and also they're using a political agenda, which I consider to be wisely used at this moment. Because when you look at it, there's not enough deputies. He has a bit more than 1/3 of the Senate in Angola, with 90 deputies.
Gonzalo, before you continue, apologies, please could you take out your earpiece? It's still causing the interference, so we can hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, as I was saying, it's a bit of both. It's a question of João Lourenço clearly being clearly underperforming, and also political agenda from UNITA that they've kind of postponed and are using it at the moment, which they consider to be the most interesting moment politically. Because I don't think with this outcome that they'll actually get João Lourenço to be impeached. Even UNITA has 90 deputies, you need at least 147. And even with the dissidents that you might have in Impel, it will probably and most likely not be enough.
Right. Do you think that the people of Angola share the same thoughts as the UNITA party? Do you think they believe that the president is not performing according to what they expected?
Yes, I definitely do. I think that there's a very rising discontentment in Angola. I think the elections in August showed that clearly. The race was very tight, tighter than anybody would have expected. And I think this also speaks a lot to the Angolan people. And you can see now all the information that I get from Angola, how it's been taken by the people and how most people are informed with what is happening. And so definitely, I think it speaks to the Angolan people.
So that being said, are we going to say that the speech that the president gave outlining the things that he has done with his administration, with his time in power, is going to change anything?
I think it depends. I think João Lourenço was a very effective communicator, to be honest. Eduardo Lourenço was also a very good communicator, but Eduardo Santos, sorry. And I don't think he'll be able to turn things around in a very convincing aspect. I mean, he doesn't have anything to sustain his main arguments when you look at the economic crisis, the social crisis, and sided with the fact that he's not a great communicator. I doubt that. I do think that there's something interesting happening, which is the United States, through Joe Biden, were the first to declare João Lourenço as the winner of the elections in August. And it's interesting to see how Adalberto Costa Jr. is penetrating in the international community here in Portugal, and also with players like the United States, which are major donors and partners of Angola. And I think that will also play a role in the future to come in Angola.
Okay, now the initiative of trying to impeach the president has been received, obviously, with some skepticism due to the MPLA's parliamentary majority. Like you did mention, an impeachment needs two-third majority or more of a seating MPs to pass. So if you were to measure this by, say, percentage, what would it be?
Uh, it's around it's around 30 with the deputies that they have now. It's around 25 to 30%. However, there's something important which happens, that the vote that took place was completely peculiar and never happened in Angola, which was there was no secrecy in the voting. This can be looked at upon an aspect that João Lourenço didn't want the public to know which MPLA deputies were dissidents, and wanted him impeached. And it was kind of again, a peculiar situation where it was closed. Normally it's open to press. This time it was closed. And it's also a big setback, another setback in a whole democratic process and consolidation that was promised by the governing party, and that UNITA is trying to force.
Okay. Now, some analysts do believe that with the ruling MPLA, I mean, with that ruling, the MPLA will test its popularity and its willingness to obey the constitution. Like, this is just going to, trigger them a little bit, make them sit up, and perform better than they did. Do you think that's possible? Do you think that can happen?
Sort of public referendum to see how they're doing. I didn't understand the last part of the question very well.
So people are saying that with that, you said that that vote had never happened before. So a lot of people are saying that, if his seat or his administration is being challenged like that, it's going to make him sit up, he and his entire party sit up and maybe want to perform better, so that if it happens again, they're going to have the support of the people this time around. Because you also did say that the people share the same thoughts with the UNITA party. So do you think that this is going to challenge the president in a good way to make him want to perform better now that he knows that his position is being threatened?
Normally, I would say yes, but what, again, when I look back at August, and when you had such a tight race, and local elections seemed like something that was natural, seemed like a process natural to initiate, and you look so many months after, nothing has been done there. I think he's going to play hardball much more than offer the public a bigger scrutiny, as you say, or try to be more popular amongst the population. Politically, you get popular if you communicate well and if you have results. And he doesn't have both. He doesn't communicate well and he doesn't have results. So I don't know. The moment to open up for a bigger scrutiny from the Angolan people was after the elections, where he should have negotiated with UNITA. He should have initiated the local election process. He should have spoken with UNITA about foreign policy, diplomacy. And the truth is that I don't think he'll do that now, even pressure to do it, because it's not an MPLA's, I wouldn't say blood because it's too strong a word here, but it's not an MPLA's book, scheduled book, or it's not how they operate. And another important aspect to look at is MPLA have ruled Angola since Angola's independence. They're not used to this position. They're not used to a party which an opposition party that weighs in so much as UNITA weighs at the moment in the country, which probably cuts the country in half. And as I suspect, does more than that, is actually probably more popular amongst the younger generation. They definitely are. And when you look at the younger generation in Angola, and the percentage, it's crazy. So they're kind of working on something which is unusual to them, which is sharing, in a certain aspect, power with an opposition party. And they haven't been able to do so far.
Right. Now, Gonzalo, very quickly, In the case that the UNITA party is unable to succeed in their attempt to get the president impeached, which is more likely to happen, do you think that that can in any way incite violence?
I hope not. I think that Angolans in general are not a violent are not violent people, and they don't want violence in both sides. And I do have to say that I think that contrary to what I've heard from one or two analysts in Angola, I don't think that UNITA is an immature party since they lost elections in August. I think that the leadership of UNITA has been very non-violent, even in their approach after the elections. Adalberto Costa Jr. was pressured by a certain faction to be more muscular in a certain aspect towards the results, and he was always very discreet. He always spoke in certain moments, and I think they're gonna want to avoid any violent situations in Angola. Obviously, there's only so much that political parties and politics can control, but I don't think that the people will reside to violence.
Finally, Gonçalo, if you were to summarize the state and the fate of Angola with this present administration, what would you say it is, very quickly?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Because the sound I didn't hear very well.
So I said, if you were to summarize the state and the fate of Angola as a country currently under the present administration, what would you say?
Needing for change. I think that Angola has a great civil society, which is vibrant. You see that from people in UNITA that are starting to rise, and I think that there's a democratic participation that is rising and that wants to have a voice. And with the current administration, I hope that they don't continue to block this process, but I'm not very optimistic in that sense.
All right. Gonçalo Teles, political analyst in Lisbon, Portugal. Thank you so much for joining us on VSA.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the invite.
A pleasure. Well, this is where we call it a wrap on the program. Do also join us on other episodes as we dissect happenings across the African continent, and of course with our guests and analysts to help us do that. It's been a pleasure having you join us on the show today. And do stick around because the news comes up next. I'm Blessings Mosugu.